Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Okay, it is Friday. Got that ringer off on that phone there, Rick? Attaboy.
Yeah, I got the ringer off.
It is Friday, and all of today's guests are brought to you by Langley Chrysler. Enjoy no-hassle 3-day returns and 30-day exchanges on all used vehicles, so you can make sure what you get is just right for you in one of the largest inventories in BC. Don't just love your car, love buying it at langleychrysler.com. Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. Just before we get to Thomas Drance from The Athletic, Joey in Surrey. Rick hurt his shoulder carrying Donnie and Ryan the last couple of years.
That's so. Joey's incorrect. I love Joey,
Big fan.
by the way. Yeah, Joey's a good guy on our Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. But I got a legend here who got 2 birdies yesterday in Henderson. I can't carry him physically. But anyways, that's about it.
Okay. Actually, there are a lot of other suggestions as to how you hurt your shoulder in the Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. We might get to those. In the meantime, Thomas Drance from The Athletic joins us now. How are you, sir?
Gentlemen, I missed you.
Welcome back.
He's back.
And I missed you guys. I missed your viewers, and I know they missed me. Great to be back with you guys for another year.
Well, and speaking of which, I'm sure we'll get reaction, as we always do.
Oh, yeah.
Regarding Thomas Drance in the Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox in a matter of moments. Thomas, how was your summer and what were you up to? I understand you have a picture.
Yeah.
I sent you guys a picture. This was from one of the happier parts of my summer as opposed to the week I spent in Montreal after the draft on lockdown after I got COVID. But yeah, this was a nice trip to the Okanagan with some friends. This was on an e-bike winery tour. We had a great time. It was a lovely summer.
Hold on, which one?
To recharge.
Which one were you? I didn't see you.
Show it
I'm
again,
the big
Ryan.
guy in the middle, Rick.
No, you got a hat
shirt.
on. I'm looking for the baldness. I don't see the bald. Okay, anyway, so you're the guy in the white shirt. Okay.
Yeah, it was 26 degrees out, Rick. Of course I'm wearing a hat. I'm not trying to farm moles on my head here.
I was looking for the bald guy. I didn't see him.
That looked like a very good time. Is that a good idea? A winery tour, e-bike? Is that a good combination?
Incredible.
Okay.
Incredible. I can't recommend it highly enough. I'd never ridden an e-bike, but those are real vehicles. It was a ton of fun.
They're all over Vancouver. My buddy works in a bike shop. They can't keep enough in stock. Very popular. We should try it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They should be.
All sorts of information to talk about regarding the Vancouver Canucks, dribs and drabs at the very least. Just your reaction, Thomas, to what we found out today. Danny DeKeyser signs a PTO with the Canucks.
Yep, and the name wasn't one that I was able to get. Rick and I had been working this over the course of the past week. I'd heard that the Canucks were out on Calvin DeHaan, who signed a corresponding PTO with the Carolina Hurricanes and reported that on Wednesday. But Danny DeKeyser wasn't a name that had occurred to me or that I'd heard out there in the ether, as this front office kept a relatively tight lid on that. Look, you need to dress 8 veteran players in the preseason. Danny DeKeyser qualifies. That'll be helpful. That'll permit the Canucks to ease in to training camp, to ease into the preseason, to save their veteran minutes for a little bit later on. And I do think that's, a hallmark of Bruce Boudreau's approach, what he wants to do in terms of his overall approach to his very first Canucks training camp. DeKeyser played third pair minutes for the Detroit Red Wings. That was one of the worst blue line groups in the league last year. He was a regular healthy scratch, appeared in 59 games. This was a guy who used to be the template for a defensive-minded transitional defenseman, but in recent seasons, back injuries have sort of zapped his speed. He retained some effectiveness 4-on-5, but it speaks volumes that he was scratched by the Red Wings last year and that he wasn't pursued by a contender as a rental trade or a rental trade option at the deadline. My expectations are low, but bringing in a veteran player can help you go a little bit younger for longer in the preseason. At the very least, DeKeyser will leap over that bar from a Canucks perspective.
Hey, Thomas, there's a need there. Can you understand why Quinn Hughes would go to the Canucks and say, I'm a lefty, but I have no problem playing the right side if you need me?
Well, they need someone to do it. I mean, they need someone to do it. The right side is this club's obvious Achilles heel. And I mean, you look up and down how they deployed their players last season, and you see Tyler Myers, who played really well, had his best defensive season in Vancouver by a long shot, playing with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. But are you getting the best out of Tyler Myers when he's playing 24 minutes a night? I don't know. I don't think so. Are you getting the best out of Luke Schenn, who, I think has become a cult hero in Vancouver and brings an honesty and a toughness to his game, a dependability that this blue line sorely needs? Like, are you getting the best out of Luke Schenn if he's in your top four, or are you better off having him on your third pair? I mean, these answers are obvious, right? They're rhetorical. It's so clear that Vancouver's right side of the defensive group is just not close to good enough. And regardless of, JT Miller and Patrick Alvin's commentary about not being worried about the blue line, like, make no mistake, right? Upgrading the blue line was this club's, priority this offseason. They just couldn't find the players to do it. They couldn't find the cap space to do it. They haven't been able to land those guys that they were hoping to land, and they're going to still be looking ahead and sort of charging up that hill, as it were, for the next 12 to 18 months until this blue line is, at a place where it can begin to mold this team into something more than sort of a contender for third in the Pacific or a wild card spot. So, Quinn Hughes is this team's best defenseman. It's not that close. If he's coming to them and saying, I want to play on the right side, that to me is a great sign of a guy who's aware of how he can help the team, willing to make sacrifices to do it, and wants to prove that he can be the answer to this team's biggest issue. To me, I love to hear that. I know that the club is also open to trying Oliver Ekman-Larsson on the right side, open to trying Travis Dermott on the right side. So they're definitely looking at sort of their surplus of lefties who are versatile enough to move over as a potential answer to the clear right side gap in this team's roster. We'll see how it plays out. I won't be stunned, gentlemen, if Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Quinn Hughes are given a long run together at training camp as a pair, with Bruce Boudreau sort of allowing them to determine themselves which of the two is more comfortable playing their offside.
Thomas, first time we talked to you about Bo Horvat and his situation. His contract's up, final year. Obviously, there's a gap there, or it would have been announced by now. They've been talking for a while. What's the latest on Horvat and his contract negotiations?
Signing Horvat remains this team's priority. I still think it gets done at some point. But, I do think the JT Miller dynamic changes things, right? The fact that Miller is now locked up on that massive 7-year deal, right, changes Vancouver's urgency level in terms of extending Bo Horvat, right? And obviously, I mean, last week or a week ago today anyway, at this time a week ago, the Canucks were staring down the barrel of having two expiring centermen, both top six quality, who were, poised to be unrestricted free agents. There was a real possibility that the club, if they couldn't come to terms with one or both, would lose both. And that was an untenable situation. You don't get better losing either player. Canucks management knows this. And ultimately, despite the fact that the smart money, even the organization's thinking was that Horvat was more likely to get done first earlier in the summer, they got the Miller deal into a place that they were comfortable with, where they felt like it was a fair contract. They just haven't got there yet with Bo Horvat. And now with Miller done, I do think that changes to some extent the club's willingness to wait a bit, right? It may tweak how aggressively the team moves to close on an extension with Bo Horvat as a result of the certainty that they now have with Pettersson and Miller sort of locked in for the foreseeable future. Of course, Pettersson expires after not this season, but next season, but he is an RFA at that point. But you've got this 1-2 punch locked up. I do think that will impact the club's overall posture as it regards Bo Horvat talks. And all of that said, I still think the club loves Bo Horvat, wants to make that commitment, wants this to be his team, and I still remain relatively positive about it all getting done. There is no denying, however, that doing Miller first changes some of the urgency on the Bo Horvat file.
You focused on them, or you talked about the Miller deal there. Again, Rick mentioned this. This is our first chance to talk to you in a long time. Your opinion of the JT Miller 7-year contract?
Well, it's a fair contract outcome from a market value perspective. There's almost no one else in this tier of centermen who ever left a year on the table, right? I mean, you look through the list of Miller's comparables and guys like Zibanejad, guys like Tomas Hertl, even guys like Duchesne and Kadri. Sure, Kadri and Duchesne signed 7-year contracts, but those were the maximum term deals that they were eligible for. Miller's sort of the first player of this caliber who plays center, who we've seen, in 4 or 5 years, who actually ended up leaving a deal on the table or a year on the table. Fair contract outcome, and then ... like ellipsis in a vacuum for this team, right? Where my concern stems from, gentlemen, is, this team should be pretty good, right? They should be pretty good. I think a 98, 99-point season is, well within the fat part of the bell curve for this team's probabilities going into this next season. Locking up JT Miller increases their chances of making the playoffs this year. But when you look at his age, when you look at where this team is, I also think it narrows the path for this team to upgrade their supporting cast and their blue line, sufficiently and quickly enough to really become an elite team during Demko, Hughes, and Pettersson's core years. And for that reason, I sort of look at this deal as a mixed bet. It's a good player. It's a good contract outcome. I just wonder if it's sort of the right player at the wrong time for this team. That's sort of my overwhelming concern coming out of last week's news. And all of that said, happy for JT Miller and his family. Must have been a great week welcoming a son and signing a deal that, as he talked about, he never even dreamed of earning himself. Certainly does position the Canucks better for this season. It's just about what it's going to take to make this team, a credible cup contender, not a credible playoff contender. And I don't know that this deal helps them on that file.
You took the words right out of my mouth. As somebody who's watched this team since 1970, even before that, in the Western Hockey League, I want to see a cup contender, not a playoff contender. Is there such thing, by the way, Thomas, as a bad photo that's taken in the Okanagan? That's a beautiful, beautiful picture you showed there.
I don't think so because of the sun. It's the lighting. It's all in the lighting, boys. It's all in the lighting. But yeah, you're right. I do look good there.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't talking about you. Everybody else and the background, outstanding.
Yeah.
Thomas, thanks for rejoining us. Thanks so much, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you guys for having me this year. Can't wait to do this weekly.